guys, welcome to yet another perspective. My name is Neeti Singhal. I'm your host. This is Dr. Swati Deepak. She's going to be our presenter. Swati, why don't you tell us a little more about yourself, what yet another perspective is?
I'm a psychotherapist by profession, a mother of 3 daughters, and I've been working in the space of psychology as a therapist and a teacher for many, many years. Now, psychology as a subject of study brought me closer to cinema, to come back and look at the psyche, to come back and look at how people function, what are the stories, what are the graphs. So a lot of times client examples in class made it a little more unrelatable. So we started using cinema to say, okay, this character is going through this crisis and this is the journey that that person has followed. So there's this idea saying that happily ever after exists only in stories and myth in cinema, and that wouldn't happen in real life. So what psychology brought into perspective was, no, that is possible even in real life if we take the graph that followed. Okay, so what kind of situations, what kind of people, what kind of incidents would make a person battle through certain things to be able to find a lot more happiness within their own self. So cinema became more an example in a way to teach psychology. Bringing yet another perspective is to come back and say that this is just a perspective. It's not therapy saying कि आप ये lecture सुनेंगे तो therapy आपका हो जाएगा. It is not a experience for cinema students saying this is how you need to learn to write your stories. This is just to say that this is also an angle through which you can see it. So yet another perspective is to see cinema in a way that psychology can be ingrained and understood. So the journey of the character, the journey and instances, the kind of growth possibilities, and cinema just gives a lot of hope because most of them come back and tell us resolutions are possible, change is possible, and that's how yet another perspective was born.
Swati, what kind of people do you see enjoying these videos or wanting to come to our platform?
So I think 3 kinds of people could be interested in it. The first one would be psychology enthusiasts. Anybody who enjoys understanding the human mind, why do we work the way we do? We like to believe we are aware about ourselves, but what could be our blind spots? What could be our fears? So our identification with those cinematic characters could give us a lot of psychology as part of both theory and as well as how to look at it in people. So if I were to say Freud is visible in real life, you would say what is it, what is ego, what is superego? So psychology enthusiasts. The second kind of people who are trying to understand themselves but are not taking a very, very methodical journey into it could be people who could identify with these characters and understand as to where they could be coming from. What kind of world should they people themselves with in order for them to be able to take that leap, instead of saying जो लोग हैं उसके बावजूद I need to be a different person. That's a very, very difficult exercise. So a lot of times what kind of people to talk to, what kind of situations to get into, what kind of learnings to look out for, that's something that can happen. It becomes with ease because you're seeing somebody else's journey and it's not emotionally too heavy on you. So that's self-understanding. And third, children who are studying cinema or literature, who look at stories saying, why are we putting a particular thing in a particular place? What could be the depth and the meaning of that? So anybody who's is excited about cinema, anybody who's excited about stories and why and how do backdrops come together. So there's something that the writer brings to the table, and there's something then the director adds to it, and there's something then the actor is able to make it alive. So there are just so many people's psyche coming together towards it. So it can be also something could interest people with cinema, literature or reading as their way of interacting with life.
Okay, so I'm just curious, like why only cinema? Like why not any other form of literature or any other form of storytelling or any other aspect of art, right? Like even images give you a window window into the artist's mind and psyche. So why just cinema? Like, what do you think is so?
So I appreciate and love other forms of art. It could be paintings, it could be poetry, it could be music, it could be dance. But I think I am not mature enough, or I wouldn't be the person to be able to say I understand it and I can analyze it. Cinema, in my journey, because I work as a therapist, because I work with their stories and the way they move forward, it becomes a lot more easier for me to use cinema and instances that build up towards the climax as a very direct example. So I feel I might be able to do justice talking about cinema, and I will surely not do any justice for any other art form. So I love it, but can't talk about it.
So another question I had in mind was, what parts of a movie do you focus on when you analyze the psyche of the character? Is it the characters? Is it the plot? Is it the structure or the narrative itself? Like, what aspects of a movie do you look at?
So it is a package in itself. So the most important thing, of course, becomes the protagonist, because the rest of it is placing that protagonist in that journey, in that particular space. And in that journey, then what are the people they encounter? What are the situations they encounter? What kind of drama adds into their life? What kind of action sequences, as in what do they really need to battle versus what do they need to learn? A lot of that then becomes the setting for the growth of the narrative. Now, it could be a primary hero, as in one person is the protagonist and you're looking at the journey of that person, or it could be a partial hero where they give and take with each other, and that's how the complete journey can end up happening. So we still would want to follow the protagonist through the whole film, but the rest of the setup becomes extremely vital. So if you're doing a war film, it's a very different connotation. If you're doing a romantic triangle, it's a very different connotation. If you're doing a social drama, it's a very different connotation. So the protagonist is most important. The growth and the format of growth is important. And change is finally what you want to bring to the table, saying this is a change which is possible because of these variables.
And how do you look at, how the story is built into the past and the present and the future, and how the narrative goes? Is there a relevance to understanding a psyche based on how the story is structured in that sense?
Yes, if we take Gulzar for example, other than Koshish, if I were to think back on his cinema, a lot of it uses the past and the present in an interplay, right? So the right flashback at the right time is a learning curve, but the right flashback at a wrong time could just be about a feeling being stuck in the past, right? So how to recognize that learning happens because also of timing, not only because of the situation. Right? So I could be in a good mood and I could have had a bad experience and I could just let it go. But I could be in a bad mood and I had an averagely bad experience and I could become very hyper. Right? So the timing becomes very, very vital, and I think cinema has that advantage, or storytelling has that advantage, that they are able to time the experience very right. कि इस वक्त हम ये वाली कहानी उसके फ्लैशबैक की सुनाएंगे, या इस वक्त we will not touch that person's story and we let the audience assume where is this person coming from. So that kind of a thing also happens in our brain. Very simple example on a woman is living her life, everything is going okay, her husband has left and receded somewhere into the unknown. The day she falls in love with another person, the husband comes back. A lot of times we feel, no, that's not possible in real life. Where did he appear from? But psychologically it's very true. He appeared because, is she ready for the next relationship? She will have to go through whether she's been able to get over the past relationship or not. So her mind will still have to battle with this new partner with the experience of the previous partner. Right? So cinematically it might seem, yaar, ye log kya kar rahe hain? But psychologically that becomes very, very relevant. So that's why timing, I think storytelling is able to pick up so beautifully that it seems possible to change.
Is that why some movies don't seem relatable to us at all, because they are so off in their telling of bringing in the past or the future at the wrong time? We can't tell what is wrong, but it just, it's bad movies just don't, you know that something's not clicking.
Yeah, so you just know that little difference between good cinema and average cinema. If you were to take something as commercial as an item number, right? An item number could always seem only to be put there for the commercial value of the whole thing. But a lot of times it's beyond that. If you were to think about Kajrare in Bunty or Bubbly, right? While it seems like an item number, you have big stars, all of that, loud music, but that is establishing the presence of a father-son relationship between Abhishek Bachchan and Amitabh Bachchan, right? So if you look at that triangle, the Oedipal triangle, there's a father, there's a son, and the mother is the common factor, right? That's exactly what they created there, where Aishwarya Rai is more interested in Amitabh Bachchan, but Abhishek Bachchan is doing everything to woo her. So considering he had a relationship with his own parents in the movie, wherein the father was very, very disciplined and the mother was always on his side, this being flirted a little by Aishwarya Rai in that particular scene establishes the security of a father-son relationship. So item number, wow, but it also serves a great purpose.
What kind of movies do you usually pick to analyze? Like, what do you think is the best to understand our psyche? So, for example, like sci-fi is so far removed from our everyday struggles. Even fantasy fiction is not about everyday living and everyday characters. Something very out there in our imaginations, which can never be a reality. So do you think those serve as good windows into the mind as well, or you don't pick those movies?
Finally, stories are about people. It could be a science fiction story, whether you're adding imagination to it, whether you're adding realism to it, whether you're adding external characters to it, whether you're adding your own voice of your own brain. Finally, it's about people's thoughts, feelings, and their actions that they end up taking. So a science fiction movie is as emotionally invested as a boy meets girl triangle would. Okay, a horror movie is as out there tapping into certain emotions that we have, which a comedy movie would also want to be catering to. So finally, any movie is about people, and people includes thoughts, feelings, and behavior. I pick whatever I like to watch. I've talked a little about movies I've not liked, but that's more what I didn't like about them. But mostly, in yet another perspective, would like to focus on movies I've really loved watching, both for the experience of having watched a movie as well as the psyche that they bring behind them. So any movie works.
And to finish this, what are the top 3 movies on your mind right now?
Inception, Sholay, and third, I think there's a much longer list, but I would kind of battle between Forrest Gump and Monica, Oh My Darling. But yeah, top of my mind, Sholay and Inception comes.
Is there any other place that we can know more about your thoughts on movies, how you look at cinema and storytelling as a platform to understand human psyche, other than our interactions, obviously, which we'll keep having in the future?
So let me introduce you here. You've been my illustrator. So I've co-authored 3 Coffee Stains Later, where we have about 30 topics that we've picked up on psychological health. And we've used a lot of cinema and movies, and, you know, thank you for the great illustrations that you brought onto the table for it. And I have another friend of mine, Hema. So we've worked together on it. It's called Comic Cinema and the Drama of the Inner Self. And this would be available on 3coffeestainslater.com. You can order it via that particular website. Rest, I think there's a lot more to come with yet another perspective.
So guys, just to reiterate, the book 3 Coffee Stains Later is available on 3coffeestainslater.com. The link is below. Please go and order. We should shortly have it also on Kindle. When it comes on Kindle, we'll let you know for sure. And this has been a great interaction. Thank you, Swati. I'm looking forward to more interactions with you. Looking forward to what kinds of movies we talk about, what kinds of characters come into play, and what I'm able to relate to and what you're able to bring in as an insight. I look forward to taking this journey ahead with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I hope I can kind of be able to take it to that level. Thank you so much.